Hello everybody, welcome to a little off-the-cuff scuffed radio video. I know it's been forever since I've uploaded, but I saw something today that just really irked me, and I had to say, I just gotta rant a little bit. So this is a video about a recent violation, a notice of violation the FCC sent to a person who likes to frequent the 40 meter 7.200 megahertz channel. And it's basically just the person was making death threats and just doing some really extreme stuff. And anybody who's been on 40 meters probably knows what 7.200 normally sounds like. This guy was on the extreme end, and he picked up a notice of violation, which at the end of the day is nothing more than a mean letter. If you get this letter and you continue to do the activities that it lays out, then you could come into some trouble later. But it really is just a mean letter saying, don't do this anymore. The number of utter, complete word I can't say on YouTube's in the comments section has me just beside myself. So many people in here, you can see my comment, so many people in here who genuinely wish for the FCC to completely eradicate the behavior on 80 meters and 7.200 specifically. They have no concept of, number one, free speech, because it is protected free speech. That is extremely clear. It's a cut and dry example of free speech. The FCC has no standing to go after people for what they say on the radio. Now, if they're jamming, if they're interfering, that's a different story. But speech alone, they just can't do anything. We have case law backing that up. We have fucking 60 years worth of history to go off of here. There's no risk of anything happening. And these people here actively advocate for, like this guy here, Mobile Tech, hefty fines and jail sentences. That's the only way this will get cleaned up. These people have no understanding that it's not the FCC's place to be playing speech police on the amateur band. They have no right to. They have no authority to, as proven by the 1982 case FCC versus Hildebrand. It's 90% of these comments are people begging for a First Amendment violation. And these are all people who, if you went in their house, they probably own guns. They probably are generally fairly conservative people. But when it comes to amateur radio, the First Amendment just goes whoop, right out the window. I mean, look at these people. I hope they're cracking down. The garbage over phone is bad. I no longer use phone. I'm 100% CW. This is a snob right here. This is somebody who can't handle hearing this type of speech occasionally. And here's the thing. If you don't want to hear it, you don't have to hear it. You have a VFO knob. Spin the dial and smile. Nobody is out here forcing you to listen to any of this stuff. Amateur radio is a voluntary thing. If you don't want to listen to something, turn your knob a quarter of a turn and you're on a different frequency where you won't hear this kind of thing. I mean, these people are retarded. They are fucking retarded if they seriously think that the FCC needs to step in and start regulating. We have free speech in this country, in the United States at least. You don't have that in the UK anymore or anything like that, but at least in America, we have free speech and it's protected on the radio. And hams are damn lucky that we don't exercise our right to free speech more often. And yeah, just because you have the ability doesn't mean you should push that to the extreme. You know, I'm not advocating that everybody just curse and scream and berate and insult on every single frequency. That's not what I'm saying. But these hams, they want a world where they want this mass surveillance. And here's the crazy thing. They want surveillance in a manner consistent with other forms of surveillance that already are coming out. These people are 100% are going to be against stuff like digital ID, like having security cameras at every street corner that track every resident of this country. These people are against that kind of thing just on principle. You can hear them talking about it. 90% of what you hear on 40 meters is people, oh, you see what so-and-so did in the news. These people are against this form of control, but on ham radio, all of that goes out the window. They don't realize that this is the same problem. It's the same concept. I mean, this one has a good this conspiracy bear here. Let's designate freaks on each band as a specific war zones. Let's get some free speech going. Exactly. We have that already. It's called 7.200 and certain frequencies on 80 meters. If you don't like what you hear, spin the dial and smile. Hi from the UK. It's good the FCC is showing its teeth again. Brother, you from the UK, they arrest you for Twitter posts over there. I mean, come on. The UK is in no place to be telling us what we need, what our communications agency needs to be doing. Ofcom over there is off the rails, issuing fines for American companies that they have no jurisdiction over, and they seriously, with a straight face, issue you a fine and say you have to pay this fine. These people need to be laughed in their face. Look at this. Oh my God. I fully support freedom of speech. This person says, I fully support freedom of speech and opinions on the air if that's what someone wants to engage in, but the abject misuse of amateur frequencies needs to be reined in. It wasn't until the FCC began relaxing license requirements that you started to see this poor behavior. You don't support free speech then, because you're claiming that free speech is a misuse of amateur radio, which is a direct it's an opposition. Both statements can't be true. You can't say I support free speech, but free speech on amateur radio is a misuse of the service. That's a contradiction. Go if the radio community needs cleaning up, let the FCC do its job. If not, we will end up like a third world country. Oh, really? Because some people curse on the radio, that's going to make us a third world country. Brother, we are already speedrunning becoming a third world country. The FCC not enforcing 7.200 etiquette is not going to cause... This person says, about time. I mean, this is ridiculous. These people deserve to go and live in a country where free speech does not exist and see how they like it. Go send them over to the UK and replace their ham radio with Twitter. Replace it with Facebook. And when they go in there and they say something about immigrants that the government doesn't like, and actual police show up at your door to give you a citation, to arrest you, to take you to jail for a post on the internet, we'll see how they feel. We'll see how people feel when their rights to speech are taken away. Because, sure, they may not be cursing on the radio on 7.200. These people may not be out there using vulgar language, but I guarantee you they're talking about things that certain governments would not appreciate. I can turn on 7.200 right now and hear somebody talking about this administration, that administration, oh, this type of weapon, that type of weapon. That's all these old codgers, these old coffin dodgers have to talk about these days is politics. And as much as they love to say that you can't talk about politics on the radio, it's 90% of what they do. Heard all kinds of profanity and arguing on this frequency just the other night. The whole bunch needs to be fined and have their licenses revoked. This guy right here is everything wrong with ham radio. Everything. Free speech protects your right to say whatever the fuck you want on ham radio. Once you cross the line into making death threats, that becomes a whole other problem. Then the radio aspect of it becomes irrelevant. That's the same as making death threats to somebody's face. The radio aspect becomes irrelevant at that point. This person would really like to have you fined and your license taken away and your equipment confiscated. They would probably laugh if you even got jail time because you got on the radio and had an argument with somebody. Meanwhile, they're over on Facebook arguing with their neighbor over the color of their grass. The FCC should check 3.927 in Georgia. This is tattletale crap. This is North Korea tattletale on your neighbor's bullshit. The depravity on the air started many years ago when licensing requirements were lowered and the wave of degenerates came in. Now it's going to be very difficult to get them out. but this is a first step. I hope they continue. The wave of degenerates you speak of are currently contained to 7.200. You want them on your net? You want them to spread like when you poke an anthill? You want a hornet's nest this bitch up? I think this is a good thing. I hope this sends a message to knock off all the BS and use frequencies respectfully within the rules. 90% of hams already do that. You know what? 99% of hams already do that. And you want to come in with your government overreach boot and stamp out the little 1% that bothers nobody except for these busybodies. An amateur radio operator should know better than to risk having their license revoked or worse. The FCC does not mess around when it comes to radio communications violations. The FCC absolutely does mess around. Okay, where have you been the last, 40 years? These people are delusional. They truly have no concept of what the world is like right now. They're so just deranged when it comes to this stuff. They don't care about your constitutional rights as an American. And yes, this was an American ordeal because this was the FCC we're talking about. They don't care about your constitutional right for free speech. They're a lot of things. They're hypocrites. They are wannabe dictators. They have in their head a certain mode that people should all be behaving in, and anybody who dares to step outside that little tiny box deserves to go to jail and have a fine and have their life ruined. This is textbook dictatorship behavior. Here's one person who's at least a little smart. I'm probably a minority, but as long as they keep it on 7.2 and 14.313, do not let it go beyond that, I don't see it's a major issue. 7.200 is a mess. I'm more interested in the method they use to pinpoint the station. Watching other hams fox hunt bad actors is great. These people literally get off on depriving somebody of their rights. Now, if you've got a station and you are just jamming the crap out of everybody and just never letting anything happen, and you just sit there and jam 24/7, that's a different story. That's jamming. That is interrupting communications. That's not really speech. You can jam with something as little as a carrier. But I still think these morons that go around advocating for fox hunting are fucking stupid too. You know how they found this guy? He's probably ID'd. He's probably well known on the frequency. He is well known on the frequency. Everybody knows who this clown is. It's not like they fox hunted him. It's not like they tracked him down and came to his house and saw the antenna and said, "Oh, there's our guy." Nah, they knew who this guy was ahead of time. And at least this person here points out, so the FCC wants him to submit in writing his own violations and what he's going to do to correct them moving forward. Yeah, good luck with that. Exactly. There's people out here coming in their pants over a letter from the FCC is hilarious. This is how desperate hams are. This is how pathetic hams are. They see a letter come in and they're like, oh, that's just as good as jail time to them. I mean, and they get off on it. They literally get off on it. They read the thing on their computer screen. They lean back in their chair and they go, yes, clean up all the lawbreakers on 7.200. They're not lawbreakers. If they're jamming, okay. If they're just ranting, yelling, arguing with each other, sure, it's not fun to listen to, but it's not illegal. Since when has having an argument been illegal in the United States? Never. We have the fucking First Amendment. People need to get off their damn high horses and stop acting like amateur radio is this clubhouse, this penthouse of where all the high class individuals go to sip their tea and have a intellectual proper discussion using grammar that is becoming of a billionaire. Like, get over yourself. Look at these people. I hope he gets a hefty fine. The garbage on 7.200 is sad. They all belong in the chicken band. Meanwhile, all of these people got their start on 11 meters. They all started out back in the 80s and 70s with 11 meters, where I guarantee you the stuff you heard on there is worse than you hear now. 90% of 11 meters, if there's no skip running, you're not even going to hear anything to begin with. And the same rule applies. If you don't like what you hear, spin the dial and smile. I was surfing for Vatican Radio at 7305. What is this person talking about? (7.200) is the CB of 40 meters. 7.200 is worse than the CB. CB, if you actually listen to it, is nothing different than ham. It's just people making contacts with different lingo. Good, now they need to start policing the rampant abuse of amateur bands at airsoft and paintball games, where whole teams buy Baofangs and just do whatever they want on whatever frequencies they want. Well, you know why they're not policing that? Because it's not a problem. Okay, a Baofeng radio, even on high power, a handheld 5-watt radio, will travel a mile at best, unless you've got a repeater. You can't even hear these people unless you're on the same block as them. And you're over here wishing the FCC would come hand out fines. Get a life. I like the fact the FCC is cracking down. I hope they try some 80-meter sideband cleanup. Fuck you. These people are so pathetic and so ignorant of our rights, as constitutional rights in this amazing country that we live in. They're hypocrites. They would go on Facebook and say stuff that would get them arrested in other countries, meanwhile actively begging for that exact same enforcement in this country. Because by their own logic, by their own desires, the moment they said something about immigrants, the moment they said something about the government, politics, whatever, by their own logic, by their own wishes, there would be a black van with antennas driving down their street that had already triangulated their signal and would knock on their door and hand them a notice of violation. These people literally want the verbal morality code, whatever the hell it was called, from Demolition Man. You've been fined 1 credit for violation of the verbal morality code. That's what they want. They want this. And it's fucking ridiculous, and they need to get their heads out of their asses, but they won't. So our only choice is to wait for these old coffin dodgers to finally croak. And then we won't have to deal with this bullshit. But there will still be bootlickers, cocksuckers of my generation, Gen Z, Gen X, whatever, that are going to see this type of stuff and mimic this behavior because they can't think for themselves. They're going to go buy their $25 Baofeng, get their technician license, and say, oh, I am now the arbiter of free speech. I'm now the radio police. I'm now the person who decides what flies and what doesn't. I already see it. We live in a world where you can get banned from a radio forum because you posted a copy of FCC versus Hildebrand. These people are wannabe dictators, and it drives me up the wall. And this is why I have such a fiery hate for this type of behavior, and why I staunchly stand against it, and why I go out of my way sometimes to represent my side of the argument. This is why I have free speech repeaters. This is why I have equipment that actually works, so my signal actually gets out. Unlike these morons with their little chode antennas and their little 25-watt, $20 mobiles that don't get out, and then they blame the repeater. Oh, the repeater sucks. Nah, it's because you bought the little 2-inch stubby antenna and put it on your car because you want a low profile, and the thing don't work worth a crap on 2 meters because you actually need a whip on 2 meters. You can't use a little spring in a plastic cup. Oh, I'm getting off topic here. Anyway, rant over. Thanks for watching.